Welcome to Huff Goes to the Movies. My name is Eric Huffman II. Most people call me Huff. Some people know that I love going to the movies. The Marvels is in theaters now, directed by DaCosta, who was coming off of the 2021 reboot of Candyman. The film serves as a faux sequel to the Captain Marvel film from 2019, but this time it's more of an ensemble piece. Carol Danvers is paired up alongside Monica Rambeau and Kamala as they find themselves switching places whenever they use their powers. This all ties back to something that the villain of the film, Dar-Benn, is attempting to do with some cosmic technology. So our heroes have to find a way to work together in order to stop her. And really, that premise feels way too simple for the way that these films have been sort of constructed over the last few years, where it feels like at any moment, all of reality is just going to be wiped out. I think that this film works best when it is just the three leads hanging out together and interacting. And the film really does soar when we get to see their chemistry on screen. Kamala Khan is the show stealer here. Iman Vellani takes what she did with the Ms. Marvel series on Disney Plus, and her performance elevates here alongside Brie Larson and Teyonah Parris. Iman Vellani in real life is a huge fan of Marvel Comics, and because her character is a Captain Marvel superfan, she's able to easily bring that energy to screen, and it is infectious. I love that we get to spend time with her family as well. I thought that that element of the Ms. Marvel show was its strong suit, and I think that what this character goes through in the film really does tease that the future of the MCU is still very bright, and it speaks to how younger characters in this franchise are still very much a vital piece to it. And I think that if Marvel wants to continue to have success in the future, they do need to find younger characters that they can build some solid story arcs around. And Kamala Khan is a great example of that, not just with her series, but in this film. I think that Teyonah Parris is fine here, but I just think that her character isn't really given a great deal to do. There's still so much about her relationship with Carol Danvers that the film doesn't really dig very deep with, and because we don't get a lot of that in the WandaVision series, and we didn't see a lot of that in the original Captain Marvel film, I think there's still a lot of ground to cover with how Monica Rambeau can be one of the faces of this franchise moving forward. But for what she's given, I think that Teyonah Parris does some pretty solid work here. Brie Larson's time as Captain Marvel has been interesting. I think that there is this agenda of people on the internet to try and make it seem like Brie Larson does not have any respect for this material or this character, and I don't really know where that comes from. Brie Larson is a world-class actress. She's an Academy Award winner, and the idea that someone who has enthusiastically joined up for very silly projects like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World or Fast and Furious 10, the idea that she somehow views this material as being beneath her, it doesn't really track. Even with all that, I do think that her performance in the first Captain Marvel film left a lot to be desired. I think that the writers and directors of that first Captain Marvel film didn't quite understand what makes that character so great in the comics. At least they didn't translate it very well on screen for me. So going into the Marvels, I was actually really excited to see just how different Carol Danvers would be this time around. Just how much growth she might have from when we first met her in the Captain Marvel film until now. I won't say that she's given a great deal of growth here or a lot of depth or development, but I do think it's clear that when Brie Larson is able to have a bit more fun, that a lot more of this character can shine through. If they do a third Captain Marvel film, and if they want to continue the story of Carol Danvers going forward, I just hope that they hand this material to someone who really does understands all the different quirks and all the different facets of the Carol Danvers character that they should try to bring on screen. Because Brie Larson is too talented of an actress to not give her so much meat to chew on, so to speak. If anyone could hit all of those notes, it's definitely her. But I do think that this film doesn't quite get off scot-free. While it is a very fun time, and the best moments are when our characters are learning to work together, there is so much of this film that feels like it was thrown together, tried to cover up with reshoots, things that were probably underdeveloped in the script when they initially shot it. And that has been a problem for Marvel Studios for a while now. This idea that they can fix everything in post-production or with reshoots, it has really tanked some of their work. I think Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania from earlier this year is the worst film they've ever produced, and I do think a large part of that rests on this arrogance that they could just fix everything in post-production. Did we need a third Ant-Man movie? I don't know that we did, but why the third Ant-Man movie sort of devolves into an ugly VFX spectacle of nothingness, I really don't know. And I think that film suffered as a result. Similarly, I think that the idea of having Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, and Ms. Marvel team up together for some cosmic intergalactic adventure, on paper that sounds like a good idea. That sounds like a pretty sensible idea. But it just feels like this film originated in a place that had a different focus to it. Nia DaCosta has said in interviews that what was going to set this film apart from other films from Marvel was that it would lean into being wacky. And while this film does have wacky moments, I think that the film feels a bit tame compared to Thor: Love and Thunder. And I know that some people really did not like how silly Thor: Love and Thunder got, but I think that the Marvels actually, outside of the interactions between our three leads, I think that when the film leans into some of that silliness is when it's at its best. And I feel like this film could have actually used even more of it. There is a scene in the film where they go to a planet where everyone sings. I loved it. I thought we could have hung out there for even longer, but it feels so chopped up and forgotten about. And I think that that's really where this film is going to start to find some detractors. So much of this film feels like an afterthought overall. The villain does not have any depth to her. We don't really know what's motivating her beyond she's the villain in this movie. The worlds we go to feel underdeveloped and not very unique. They feel like just sort of general green screen volume setting places. So for this film to set itself apart from the rest of the MCU, I feel like it should have probably followed the model of a Guardians of the Galaxy, where we really do spend time on different planets and in different worlds with these characters and watching them bond over the course of them going to different places. But this film doesn't quite do that. It dips its toe in the pool, but it doesn't really dive all the way in. And I think that that's a very serious flaw here. Other issues that I had with the film were the pacing. I think that the first act feels a bit too chaotic and all over the place. But as we move into the second and third act, it does start to smooth itself out. I do think you can really see the fix-it-and-post mentality of Marvel all over this film. But you can especially see it in the second and third act. But to its credit, I think that those efforts feel like smoother storytelling than some of the jumbled, chaotic, all over the place elements of the first act. So it is a mixed bag as far as story construction and overall aesthetics, but it is a fun time through and through because the characters here shine brighter than everything else. There's also a really silly bit that involves the Flurkins. I won't say what it is, but for people who like cats or people who are very much into musicals, I think that they will have a ball at this scene. You'll know it when you see it. As far as how this film connects to the future of the MCU, I, of course, don't want to spoil sort of where that goes. And I obviously won't spoil it by saying where I think it will go. But I do think that having watched this film, having seen how it teases the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, honestly, I am excited to see these characters in the future. I cannot wait to see what Ms. Marvel is going to do in future titles. I can't wait to see how they continue to develop that character. And with Iman Vellani being so young, she is sort of in the same position as Tom Holland, where she can really grow with this role. And I think that this is the sort of film that can endear her to fans who may not have watched anything on Disney+. I think that this will inspire them to go to Disney+, to check out all of the Marvel series that do connect to these films. As far as Monica Rambeau, I think there's a lot of ground to cover there, but I would be really excited if they announced to Marvel that they found a director who wants to sort of tell a story that is solely focused on her. I think that Teyonah Parris does bring something to this role. She does bring a certain energy and a certain spark to this. And, you know, for a character who did once lead the Avengers, who was once the Captain Marvel of Marvel Comics, I think that Monica Rambeau absolutely deserves that. And as far as Carol Danvers, I think that she is a fascinating character. I think that Brie Larson is too talented of an actress to only play it in such one-note fashion. And I think that if we are to get a third version of a Captain Marvel movie, I hope that it is more focused on her. I'm not saying that they can't bring other characters in or other heroes, but I would just hope that someone looks at the run that Kelly Sue DeConnick had with this character and they say, let's try to do as much of this as possible. I think that Carol Danvers is definitely owed that respect, and I think that Brie Larson, as a world-class actress, deserves an opportunity to really show her full range as a performer in this role and in this universe. So going forward, I'm excited for whatever Marvel's stuff we get in the future. I just hope that it goes through a smoother production process with a script that is a bit more grounded with some character development and one that won't be hacked to death in the post-production process. But overall, I had a fun time with it, and I think that Marvel fans who aren't so hung up on this idea that Marvel only wants to tell stories about people of color or women, or that they're giving in to some agenda of only focusing on queer characters. I think that if you go in just wanting to have a fun time, I think that you'll find it here. And for all those reasons, I actually do recommend that you check out the Marvels in theaters. But I do want to speak a little bit about that part, right? People did not go see this film. The film opened with the lowest opening weekend of any Marvel Studios film since the studio launched with Iron Man in 2008. It opened to just under $47 million. Now, for a film that cost more than $200 million to make, that is not a good sign. Earlier this year, we saw what happened with The Flash, another film that was very expensive, that had gone through all this hype and marketing, only to come out and essentially fall flat on its face. The Marvels right now looks to be in a position to be an even bigger flop of the superhero genre than The Flash. But I think that the word of mouth on this could quell some of that. Do I think that this film has the potential to have legs that carry it from where it's at now to, say, the $600 million mark? I find that to be very improbable. But earlier this year, Disney did put out a film called Elemental. It was through Pixar that did not have a great opening weekend, but word of mouth kept people coming back to the theater. People started to hear more about it and went to check it out. They went to support it. And while I think the overall box office might still be disappointing for the folks at Disney, I think that it speaks to the potential that a film can have when people who like it are saying that they like it, when they're getting out positive word of mouth for the film. The Marvels is going to have an uphill battle to climb. The Hunger Games prequel is coming out this weekend. I expect that film to have a big opening, as The Hunger Games is a big tentpole property, but I think the audience scores for the Marvels suggest that there is still quite an audience to be found with this film. And so, as of now, while I'm not saying I would put money on it, I do think there is something to be said about the possibility that this film can perhaps find some more audience while it's still in theaters. And hopefully this can be a lesson to Marvel in the future, that they try to lock down their stories before they film it, that they don't rest solely on this idea of fixing things in post-production, because the audience is sophisticated now. We, the audience, can tell when you try to save something in post. And while I did have a lot of fun with this film, I can also see the seams in it. So that's all that I wanted to say about the Marvels. Guys, have you seen the film? Comment down below, let me know your thoughts. If you stayed all the way to the end, please do give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate all the support. I am back talking about movies on YouTube. There are so many movies that I do want to cover, and I cannot wait to get more stuff on the channel. Once again, my name is Eric Huffman II. Most people call me Huff. Stay sweaty, my friends. I will see you at the movies. Peace.